Some murders are so horrifying, investigators still remember them decades later. These aren't horror movies. They actually happened. Let's start with an easy one. Actually, no. This case is the reason detectives stopped saying, "I've seen everything." June 10th, 1912. A quiet little town in Iowa. The kind of place where the biggest scandal is someone's cow escaping. Then, an entire family disappears overnight. When neighbors finally enter the house, they find 8 bodies, including 6 children. Now here's where this case stops making sense. The killer didn't rush. He had plenty of opportunities to escape. Instead, he stayed. He wandered through the house, covered every mirror, pulled the curtains shut, even prepared himself food. Seriously, imagine committing one of America's most infamous crimes, and then thinking, you know what? I could really go for a midnight snack. That's unsettling. Police questioned dozens of suspects. One man was arrested, twice. Another confessed, then changed his story. Evidence disappeared. Witnesses contradicted each other, and the investigation slowly became one giant mess. More than a century later, the official killer is still unknown. Some mysteries refuse to stay buried. This was one of them. But compared to our next case, this one almost looks organized. All right, next file. Fair warning, this one isn't a mystery. It's something much worse. Because sometimes, the scariest monsters don't wear masks. They wear school uniforms. November 1988, 17-year-old Junko Faruda was riding her bike home from work in Tokyo. She never made it. A group of teenage boys kidnapped her. At first, police believed she had simply run away. They couldn't have been more wrong. Instead of asking for ransom, the kidnappers kept her hidden inside one of their homes. And somehow, no one stopped them. Not the neighbors, not the people visiting the house, not even some adults who suspected something was terribly wrong. Imagine hearing smoke alarms for weeks and deciding, probably just someone burning toast. Sometimes people don't ignore evil because they don't see it. They ignore it because getting involved feels inconvenient, and that's terrifying. Weeks passed. The investigation stalled. Meanwhile, Junko's parents searched everywhere, believing she might still come home. Eventually, the truth surfaced. Not because of brilliant detective work, not because someone finally did the right thing. One of the offenders was arrested for an unrelated crime. During questioning, he started talking. That confession led police to the house. The suspects were arrested. Japan was horrified. People expected life sentences. Instead, many of the offenders received prison terms that the public considered far too short. Some were released while still relatively young. The outrage wasn't just about the crime anymore. It became about the justice system itself. Some cases end with justice, some end with answers. This one left people wondering whether justice ever showed up at all. Now, if you think that's the most disturbing file on my desk, don't get comfortable, because the next family had absolutely no idea. They were about to become one of America's most famous murder cases. Let's switch gears, because this next case looks like the easiest murder investigation ever. A quiet farmhouse, 4 victims, no witnesses, no obvious motive. What could possibly go wrong? Everything. November 15th, 1959. Holcomb, Kansas. The Clutter family was the definition of the American dream. Successful farm, respected parents, no criminal record, no enemies. If you asked anyone in town who might become the victim of a violent crime, the Clutters would have been dead last on the list. Then, they were found dead inside their own home. Oddly enough, the house wasn't trashed. Jewelry was still there. Cash hadn't been taken. Even expensive belongings were untouched. Which immediately raised one question. If this wasn't robbery, then why kill anyone? Police searched for clues, fingerprints, footprints, anything. Nothing. The crime scene was almost too clean. Imagine opening a 1,000-piece puzzle, only to realize someone forgot to put the pieces in the box. That's basically what detectives were dealing with. Weeks passed. The investigation hit a wall. Then, a former prison inmate told police about something he'd overheard behind bars. A fellow inmate had been talking about a wealthy Kansas farmer who supposedly kept a safe full of cash inside his house. There was just one problem. The safe didn't exist. The killers had broken into the wrong dream. They found almost no money, but instead of leaving, they committed a crime that shocked the entire country. Police tracked down two ex-convicts, Perry Smith and Richard Hickok. Both denied everything, at first. Then their stories started falling apart. Eventually, they confessed. Case closed. Right? Not exactly. Because this case didn't just make headlines, it changed journalism forever. A young writer named Truman Capote spent years interviewing investigators, witnesses, and even the killers. The result became In Cold Blood, a book many people consider the first true crime bestseller. One murder investigation ended up creating an entire genre. Funny how one lie about a safe cost 4 innocent people their lives. And somehow, that's still not the strangest case in today's file. Because next, we're visiting a farmhouse in Germany where someone may have lived with the victims before and after the murders. Let's open that file. Some murder cases are brutal. Some are mysterious. This one is just wrong. I've read hundreds of case files. This is one of the few I'd rather not revisit. March 1922, southern Germany. A tiny farm called Hinterkaifeck. Only 6 people lived there. The Gruber family. Nothing unusual. At least, that's what everyone thought. A few days before the murders, the family's patriarch, Andreas Gruber, noticed footprints in the snow. They led from the forest straight to the farmhouse. But there was one small problem. There were no footprints leading back out. Someone had walked in. Nobody had walked out. Now, maybe that's just strange, until the next thing happened. Gruber started hearing footsteps coming from the attic. Every night, he searched, found nothing. Then, a set of house keys disappeared, and shortly after that, the family discovered a newspaper, one that nobody remembered buying. At this point, I'm calling the police, moving to another country, maybe another planet. But the family stayed. A few days later, neighbors noticed something unusual. No one had been seen outside. The children never showed up to school. The mail wasn't collected. Eventually, neighbors entered the property. Inside, they found all 6 family members dead. Police believed the victims had been lured to the barn, one by one. Not all at once, one after another. Whoever did this was patient, calm, organized. But here's the part that keeps investigators awake even today. After the murders, someone stayed on the farm, not for an hour, not overnight, for several days. The animals were fed. The fireplace was kept burning. Meals had been prepared. Neighbors even reported seeing smoke rising from the chimney. Imagine discovering your entire family is gone, and the killer decides, well, somebody still has to feed the cows. That's not confidence. That's chilling. Police interviewed over 100 suspects. They followed countless leads: family disputes, robbery, traveling workers, even secret lovers. Nothing stuck, no arrest, no confession, no answer. Over 100 years later, the official killer remains unknown. Some cases leave behind evidence. This one left behind questions. And speaking of questions, our next file is about a woman whose murder became so famous, people still argue about it almost 80 years later. The newspapers gave her a nickname. The killer never got one, because no one ever found him. Let's open the Black Dahlia case. Every famous murder has 2 victims. The first is obvious. The second is usually the truth. Because once the newspapers get involved, facts start competing with headlines. In this case, it became America's favorite obsession. Los Angeles, January 1947. A woman walking with her child noticed what looked like a broken mannequin lying in an empty lot. She almost kept walking. Then, she looked closer. The victim was identified as Elizabeth Short. She was only 22 years old. Reporters quickly gave her a nickname, the Black Dahlia. Sounds like the title of a noir movie. Unfortunately, it was real. Almost overnight, the story exploded. Newspapers couldn't get enough. Every day there was a new theory, a new suspect, a new exclusive. If clickbait had existed in the 1940s, this would have been its mascot. The police weren't just chasing a killer anymore. They were chasing rumors. Hundreds of tips poured in, then thousands. People claimed they saw the killer. People claimed they knew the killer. Some even claimed they were the killer. No, seriously, more than 50 people confessed. Most of them were lying. Imagine trying to solve a murder, while half the country keeps volunteering for the job. Investigators interviewed doctors, actors, criminals, even people with absolutely no connection to the case. Years passed. Nothing. Every promising lead collapsed. Every suspect raised more questions than answers. And despite decades of books, documentaries, and internet detectives convinced they've cracked it, the case has never been officially solved. Sometimes, a mystery stays unsolved because the clues aren't there. Sometimes, it stays unsolved because there are simply too many. The Black Dahlia became more than a murder case. It became a legend. And legends have a bad habit of hiding the truth. Now, our next file is different. No famous nickname, no newspaper frenzy, just a little boy found inside a cardboard box. And for more than 60 years, nobody even knew his name. Let's see if we can change that. Some case files are thick, dozens of suspects, hundreds of interviews, thousands of pages. This one started with almost nothing. No name, no family, no one looking for him. In February 1957, just outside Philadelphia, a college student was walking through a wooded area. He noticed an old cardboard box. At first, he ignored it. People dumped trash there all the time. But curiosity won. When he came back later, he made a discovery that would haunt detectives for decades. Inside the box was the body of a young boy. He looked to be around 4 years old. No identification. No missing person report that matched. Nothing. Police did everything they could. Fingerprints, photographs, flyers. They even displayed a reconstructed likeness in hopes that someone would recognize him. No one did. Think about that for a second. An entire child, and the world had no idea who he was. Investigators chased every lead. One witness claimed the boy had been sold. Another believed he came from an orphanage. Years later, a woman came forward with a shocking story. She said the child had lived in her family's home. Her account sounded convincing. It made headlines. But detectives couldn't verify enough evidence to prove it. The mystery continued. Years became decades. Most cold cases fade away. This one refused. Then, DNA technology changed everything. Investigators used genetic genealogy, the same technique that helped identify the Golden State Killer. Piece by piece, they rebuilt the boy's family tree. Finally, in 2022, after 65 years, the child got his name back, Joseph Augustus Zarelli. For the first time, he wasn't just the boy in the box. He was a real person, a son, a child, someone who finally had an identity. Unfortunately, knowing his name didn't solve the murder. Police are still searching for answers. Funny thing about names, most people spend their lives trying to make theirs famous. This little boy spent 65 years just trying to get one. If you think these were the most disturbing murder cases, you're wrong, because the case that kept detectives awake at night hasn't even appeared yet. See you in part 2.